All right. First of all, thank you guys so much for having me. Today is something I get to talk about that I'm really passionate about, which is the collaboration with finance. Now, I get a little pissed off and a little frustrated. Yes, clients do get pissed off. I saw a bunch of people go, oh, he said pissed off. Cover your ears for the rest of this. I get a little pissed off because I hear a lot of conversations where people talk about finance. And immediately they want to send you all back to MBAs. They want you to start doing discounted cash flows, NPV calculations. How are we ultimately going to connect with other people? And I think that ignores the superpower that you all have, that exists in this room, to ultimately change and influence. Because you are never going to out-finance finance. But that doesn't mean that you can't connect and change the world, or at least win what I call the battle for the soul inside every company that's being fought every day. And let us be clear, every single day waged inside any corporation is a battle for the soul of the company. It is a win or lose battle about who is in charge. I loved hearing the keynote earlier talking about pitches and tips and tricks, because I love pitches, because there are winners and there are losers. And I love to win and I hate to lose, and I have done both. But there is something special also about this battle for a soul, because you can't win just with facts and you can't win just with emotion. You have to win because it's what's right. And inside every company that you look at in the world, there is a battle for that soul. There are capitals in that country, in that company that matter. Certain clients that matter more. Certain functions that matter more. And we could think about them in Mondelēz, the capitals, Oreo US, Cadbury UK, Cadbury India. These are the people who set the pace inside the company. But you also have functions. I worked at Twitter at a time. I can tell you that HR set the tone in that company, along with engineering, because it was about caring in a big way. And there was a big feel to that organization about how they act, how they walked, how they talked, and the culture really is what made that organization special. We could go into another organization, same category, and all of a sudden, engineering is the big dog. I've worked in General Motors, finance, engineering in terms of design. They set the pace in those organizations. But perhaps the biggest classical example of the fight inside organizations is truly marketing versus finance. It is the battle between the brand and the numbers. Or as I like to think about it, it is the tension that exists in any organization between transforming, represented by marketing, and performing, which is recognized by finance. And the truth is that every single day that battle plays out. And it is a push. And ultimately, I believe that in any organization, marketing should lead. Marketing should lead because it drives transformation of the business and it makes the money, and finance counts it. But in the absence of marketing leadership, finance leads. And thank God they do. Because if they didn't, there would be no framework, no consistency, and no execution. But the sad, very sad truth is if you look around the world, and you can see symptoms and examples of this, the short tenure of CMOs, finance leadership, the domination of certain topics in terms of earnings, CAGNY, which used to be focused on grand and growth, has now been more focused on more in short-term financial measures. The truth is, fundamentally, marketing's losing. Marketing is losing. And therefore, our partners are losing. We are more focused on performing than we are in transforming. And that can be because of the symptoms. We can talk a lot about it, but I want to get to why. Because everyone will talk about the macro. They'll talk about investors, they'll talk about shareholders, but I think the truth is a lot uglier and it hurts a lot more. The first part of it is how did we get here? And we got here, first and foremost, we were distracted. We were distracted from what companies are primarily focused on, which is growth. We got caught up in a bunch of shiny objects, and we got caught up in a bunch of topics that didn't really matter. You can look at agendas of conferences marketers go to. I like to pick on the WFA, which is my favorite, and you will look at the time and what people spend their time on, and it's not growth. We got caught up in brand suitability, which is important, but it's not supposed to be 80% of the time. We got caught up in fighting with our agencies over procurements and deliverable-based models. That's not a growth-driven topic. We got distracted from what ultimately mattered, growth, and we stopped talking about it. The second thing that happened is we became disconnected. We became disconnected. There is no better friend that a marketer has than their agency partner. One of the things I always tell people who are thinking about coming from an agency over to a client side, they go, what do I need to know? And they think that I need to tell them about how to manage finance or how to manage the board decks or how to build this. And what I will tell you is it is the loneliest thing you will ever do in your life. Because inside all of your halls and every agency you work at, there is someone, when you have a brilliant idea, a great insight, that you can walk down that hall and you can tell them about it. And they will understand you. They'll appreciate you. They may be jealous of you. They'll hopefully build on you, but they will get you. When you go into a client, I assure you, you often speak a language that not everyone else knows. And the only person who really understands you is your agency. They are your first and hopefully your last phone call because they get you. And somehow we become disconnected. We got excited about other things. Often it's because platforms. It was fun to hang out with Google. It was more fun to go to that party. We stopped talking about what really mattered to each other. We stopped caring about mutual wins. How do I grow? How do you grow? How do we grow together? We stopped talking about work that made us excited and only talked about the current deliverable. When was the last time you sat down and said, what's your ambition for creative? What's the work you loved over the last year? What's someone else you admire? Those conversations that used to fill every single hall of every single agency and every single meeting have gone silent. And we don't have that conversation anymore because there's just something that has to get out the door. We're focused on performing. We're playing by finances rules, not thinking about how we transform the business and where we're going to go together. We also got dusty. The relationship got stale. We didn't have real conversations. We were just following orders, and we didn't reinvent ourselves. All great organizations and partnerships constantly reinvent. They find new areas to collaborate, new things to do. There's no shortage of exciting things happening in advertising. There's no reason for any relationship to be dusty. I've worked on brands that have had 90-year relationships with agencies. They are far from dusty. They are exciting places where great ideas fly. And yet, some relationships that are only a few months old already have dust settling on them because we've moved on. We forgot. We're focused on the next pitch, the next idea, the next agency. How do we keep those things fresh? And then we got diluted. We cared about too many things. Have you ever seen how a marketer spends their time and what their priorities are? What a mess. What a mess. They've got 15 initiatives times 4 work streams times 13 people. They need like 5 PMOs just to figure out their calendar. And where are you spending your time? Is it on the things that really matter? Has a bunch of schluck filled up your calendar in terms of what you're doing and things that aren't really all that important? What are the 3 things that are going to really change the business? Or the thing I like to think about, in every client-agency relationship, a client is forever changed by the agency they work with. Their fingerprints are all over me. The work I do with Martin Agency causes me to think about emotion and really a childlike delight. You see it in everything that you do in Oreo. The discipline, the creativity, the emotion. It is the heartbeat that isn't just in the advertising they do, but in every single agency who produces work for me, you will see Martin Agency's fingerprints. From VCCP, you feel their brand strategy. You see my focus on it. My friends at Ogilvy have driven my digital transformation and caused me to think about personalization in ways. Every agency who's ever touched my business changes me in some way, forever. There can't be dilution to that. There aren't 3 ways they've changed me. There's one. With every client you have, I ask you, what are you really focused on? And how will that transform not just marketing, but the entire organization? And make no mistake about it, marketing will change and transform the entire organization because it will lead in the entire company. So then there's an important point. A lot of these things I talked about where we're not on the same page, there's a lot of things with clients that we're really screwed up. But if people are gonna fix it, I think it's gonna be a lot of people in this room fixing it. Because clients sometimes need to be shaken within an inch of their life. What is I going to be doing? And you need to do this to wake them up to this because they're losing. They're losing. And some of the things that are gonna change their career, change their life, are gonna come from here. And gonna come from people in this room. So what do I think that looks like? Where do you start? And what do I think are the things that really matter? The first is framing the business problem. Not like some finance goon where he goes, we're gonna increase net revenue by going after segment 246, and then we're gonna expand margin. It's gonna be really great. But framing the problem in an exciting, dynamic way, giving life to the problem. You know what the problem in Oreo is? At age 16, people move to savory, and then they don't come back until later they have kids. You know what that's called? The cookie chasm. I didn't write it. A strategist did. And damn it, I remember it every single time I talk about it. You want to know why there's Lady Gaga Oreos? The cookie chasm. And it scares me every day. How will you frame the problem in an exciting way? It's not just about ones and zeros, but it's something, when I see that problem, my heart beats faster. I worked on State Farm. There was a brilliant strategist who talked about the fact the problem with State Farm is it was your parents' auto insurance. Just a simple concept. You know, those little pithy ways of framing the problem that cause people to think about it differently. I worked with a great strategist, Tariq, who's now the CMO of McDonald's on a PetSmart pitch. Slide 1, get the piss off the floor. Retail slide 1, before we spend $1 on advertising, we're gonna get the piss off the floor. And it made, for Petco, it was essential. It's like, this is problem 1, barrier 1. But like, what is really the problem? And you have the power to bring these things to light and speak truth and light on the problem. Because if it's always framed in zeros, ones, and something that fits in an Excel, you will never transform. You will perform to super high levels, but you will never transform. And the world requires transformation. The next thing is setting clear and consistent KPIs. What these finance guys have going for them is that balance sheets, income statements, and all the KPIs they've used have been around for centuries. Literally centuries. And they are consistent about it, time after time after time again. And they branded them horribly, like the DuPont model. Like, who cares about the DuPont model? But these are the things that people talk about. And every single time they go to the board, or they go to the CEO, or they go to the street, they show the exact same thing. I can't get an agency to show me the same KPIs 3 meetings in a row. This week we care it's this. Now it's social awareness. Now look at unaided. Look at here. Look at there. Like, what are we striving to do? Based on the transformation agenda you've set, what will we look at over time? That change will not happen tomorrow. Mondelēz did not grow into being a 40 billion company overnight. It took time. There was a strat plan. There was a vision for what it would be. Oreo is not what it is today because of one single action or execution. It took time. But there is a consistent drill of KPIs that we look at time and time again. And they may move slow, but they move. And together we make real impact on that drives the business. In marketing, this is something we can learn from the finance team because it's their secret sauce. It's consistent boredom. But consistent delivery of boredom works. And last, it's about a strong, inspiring point of view and how we as an organization act or make money. There is so much power in this room in the words that you can create. And if there is a secret inside the marketer's quiver, finance may have KPIs, but you have words that stir people's minds and hearts. You cause our hearts to beat faster, to get excited about missions that ultimately we could only dream to go on. That is how ultimately you will change an organization. That is how you win a battle for the soul. No one has ever gotten excited about being the world's largest snacking company. But being a company of makers and bakers and what we do in our marketing agenda has inspired people to change how they think and how they do. And that's something that doesn't just change how we do things in marketing, it changes how we see the world. I want to show a quick video next. This is work that was done by my partners at Ogilvy. We were thinking about the change we wanted to do in marketing. The story on Mondelēz is over the last 8 to 10 years kind of looks like this. One, a great company launched with a very interesting vision that ran into some macroeconomic headwinds that then decided to get into a big profit-cutting or expansion protocol. You're all nodding. You're like, yeah, we had a bad experience with those guys. They were the worst clients ever. To now being a client who's consistently in Work, Effie's, and Cannes in the top 10 and has been a major renaissance. And at the heart of that is not the clients. I've met him. He's dumb. But it's the agencies. That is the superpower of Mondelēz, because they will all tell you, they've met us, we're not that smart, but we're good at partnering externally. And they have helped us find our words, find our path, and find who we are. And in doing so, they've inspired really great change and really helped us dream about what these things could be and realized the potential within. The video we ran is something that we put together 3 years ago to really inspire how we were going to up-level our creativity, how we were going to change our digital transformation, and I think sparked a big change. And I can't literally sit here in some perfect correlation chart and show you my R squared and be like, it's perfectly correlated all the way across, if you see. But I can tell you there was a change in Mondelēz when we started talking about this, when we started showing this, and we all started walking a little bit taller. We all started running meetings a little bit differently. And I think we've started to win the battle for the soul of the company. Oh, that's gonna play.
Here's to them, the visionaries, the ones who think outside the packet, the ones yearning to break the mold. Because you understand that if you can think it, you can make it. Snacking is a well-known behavior in an established category, and asking you to reimagine it may seem impossible. But at Mondelēz, we transform impossible into impossible. You are the beating heart that sets our company's pace. You hold the secret recipe that will transform the future of our business to reimagine snacking through our brands. But let's face it, we live in a world filled with division, loneliness, and stress. So we need to think bigger than biscuits or chocolate. Spread love, melt hearts, bake joy into people's lives. Risk it for a chocolate biscuit. And every day come in knowing I'm possible to reimagine snacking through our brands. I'm possible to reimagine our role in people's lives. To reimagine how sweet treats can lead to mindful indulgence. To use creativity to fill bellies with butterflies. To serve up innovation that turns consumption into conversations. To use commerce to create unmissable experiences. To take that brave step, leaving a positive footprint on the world. This is what we believe in. You are who we believe in. So the next time an idea makes you feel silly, nervous, bashful, take comfort food out of its comfort zone. Be clear, be courageous, be connected. To reimagine snacking through our brands, turning impossible into I'm possible.
It's So a thank you to Ogilvy and the team who did it. And that's not who we are today, but that's who we're striving to be every day when we're at our best. Thank you very much for the time.
John, a couple of questions.
No, I did not drink coffee for breakfast.
How about lunch? You talk about focusing on the long term. Often we find that, maybe finances focus on the long-term growth and long-term prospects, but marketing, the people that agencies are working with, have a bit shorter-term perspective. How do you deal with that?
I think that the best people, it's that balance of performing and transforming, and I talk about that a lot. It's big inside the company. There's a great article for all nerds out there from a guy who used to be at BCG, he's now a professor at IMD. It's called 2% Companies from like 2015, 2016. And it talks about there's literally like 2% of the companies that do those things both well and what it takes. I think that ultimately the challenge is we're very much comped on what we do today. But if we don't do certain things today, we will not achieve what we want in the future. And all companies struggle with this. Mondelēz struggles with this. We had our record year last year. We finished #1 in total shareholder value, gross profit, et cetera. But if there was a critique, we haven't solved things in premium chocolate yet. We haven't ultimately laid all the foundations. But there are then green shoots. And I think marketing plays a critical role here to say, hey, if in I find future back works really well. In 2030, we want to be a company of this size, and we've talked about being a $50 billion company, and we want to lead in this chocolate, for example. There has to be a premium chocolate business. There is no way that that doesn't happen. We achieve our vision if it doesn't. So how are you going to do that today? So I find getting people to talk where they want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and articulating that into goals, not that goofy magazine cover design bullshit exercise, but like tangibly, like where do you want to be and what has to happen today? Because if you go from today to the future, you'll always do too small of things. It'll always be too small. You have to literally sit here and say, I believe in this. And then you can kind of work back from that. I think the other powerful question that I like to ask marketers and becomes really important as they move up through in seniority is, how do you believe brands grow? And from that, you can have a very powerful conversation, because it's one of those that'll really probe into how do you think that exactly is going to happen for you? And therefore, you will get inside their psyche. And there are very different schools. I spent a lot of time with my peers and other CMOs just talking about how do you think brands grow? And it's very interesting, the philosophies of a different company. Even someone who's both impulse, myself and Coca-Cola, both very much operate in impulse, them in beverages, me in food, have very different philosophies about how we grow and what they think are important. They're more grounded in experiences. My hallmark is more in emotion and personalized storytelling. And they have different philosophies and they will play out. But once you get people, you hear me even talking about, I get excited, you will learn a lot in that conversation, and then you can help guide and coach. And all of a sudden, then you become my guru coaching me on how to do that. That's a beautiful relationship to have.
What about the ways that your agencies share ideas with you? We've talked about this earlier today, in fact, but are there ways that ideas can propagate that you would recommend any agency should pick up?
I think there's, a few thoughts. I think one is, I have one agency on my roster that literally will calendar at about this time of year 4 times next year, where they just want to put on my calendar time for me to show one idea in a meeting. And they go, listen, whether you buy it or not, you'll never be able to say that I didn't show you something proactive. You'll never be able to do, and literally it's called you can't say I didn't bring you a good idea. I think that I have one other creative director I work with who I deeply respect, and he will always, in every presentation, after the meeting's over, he and I do a one-on-one, and goes, here's the idea that you were too scared to buy. Here's the thing that was on the cutting room floor. And I think that's really powerful, just to be like, I just want to show you what we think you're too scared to buy, because you never know when someone will go for it, and we have bought things off the floor. I've had agencies that do an interesting thing of showing in a pitch context, like, here's all the things that we put in a parking lot that you've said no to, that we just want to come back to. You know, you've said no to these ideas over the last 3 years, and we think you're an idiot, and we just want to show you how great these all are. I think a lot of them also just, you know, like want to just talk it out. I think it doesn't have to require some big pitch theater or animagic or a great idea. You just get very quickly. And so I think a lot of them just go, hey, I just want to talk this out with you. And every time I know that that particular strategist said, I just want to talk something out with you, I'm like, I'm being sold something. I should just buy now because I'll end up doing this. I just know. But I think there's a lot of different, every agency will find their vibe and their way to ultimately go do that. But I think the bigger thing is people think it needs to be fully flushed out, fully germinated, fully whatever. I think it's sometimes just like, hey, I have a flyer of an idea. Do you got 5 minutes? And it's just the start of something. There was a big press release about all we're doing in Gen AI last week that started by someone saying, started with a text message, world moving from ads to libraries. Let's discuss. And that was the entire, that and all of a sudden a whiteboard being pushed down, literally like onto a boat, like was the start of that conversation. And literally like, we're moving ads to libraries, discuss.
And I guess one final question. How do you see the role of strategists in making for the most elegant, productive relationships possible? What should strategists be doing, bringing, seeing, thinking when it comes to your business?
I think you guys have a bigger, while you own the consumer, you also hold attention on the business. I think you hold attention. And I think sometimes you get cushioned off and like segmented in this corner called they own the consumer. And you're bigger than that. If all you do is own the consumer, then you are not living up to why you existed in the world. You are not created to just own the consumer. I think you own something so much bigger in terms of framing the problem, framing the transformation. I can assure you most of the lines in that video that you saw, that was written by a strategist. It's Adonis at Ogilvy, and he personally is just in it day to day. I think you guys have this big drumbeat of what's going on. And in many cases, I will personally tell you, there are also clients in this world, and I'm definitely one of them. My background is more in media. I had a failed start in a creative department. It was bomb. We can look at that reel later over drinks. But I come from more of a media background, and account planners, I literally, when they come into the room, that's who I have sit next to me. I will rearrange a room to be like, I need the planner to sit next to me. And I think that you play a very key client leadership role, but it's more than just consumer, it's the business economics, and this is how you're going, like framing the problem and just putting some inspiring language to it. And I think I find my confidence through planners. As a client, I find my confidence through planners. And I find their integrity, their honesty, there's some, I would tell you, I have a statement that I say, which is, clients complain loudly but pray softly, which means you have to get really close to them to understand, because you can hear my complaints from miles away, but my prayers are close, and I can tell you the people who are my one phone call or hear my prayers are usually my planners. They know what's really going on, and the account people should listen to them because they'll be like, oh no, John really means this. They're like, like, they know, and I think you can get close. You should be that person sitting on the right or the left.
Can't thank you enough. Thank you, John.